All right, so today I'm going to walk through project 3 specs with you. We are on the home stretch. So make this bigger. We are going to do this project and you'll turn it in next week. No, sorry. You will turn it in the week we get back from Thanksgiving vacation. There will be nothing due during Thanksgiving vacation because it's vacation. I do want to say this very clearly to everybody. I may or may not check emails next week. It will be solely up to whether or not I'm bored or I'm escaping my family. Let's be honest. Do not expect instant responses to emails next week. You're on break. I'm on break. I got a crazy idea. So, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't jot down whatever your question is and go ahead and send it to me as an email. You can absolutely do that. And when I get back or when I have some downtime, I will send you an answer. Do not send me a nastygram via email or any other way that I'm not answering you fast enough because I'm on break too. Why am I saying that? Because I got emails last night from 6 p.m. till 10:30 before I went to bed and stopped checking my phone at all. So I'm not available next week. Anyway, that being said, let's look at the project. So this project is your last project. It is not as long as a normal project. There's only 2 parts here. Part 1 is worth 84 points. Not 74, 84 points. If you're happy with a B, you don't even have to attempt part 2. But make sure you have all of part 1 working correctly before you turn it in. If you don't get at least 60 points in part 1, I am not grading part 2 because I don't understand how you could have gotten to part 2 with that little part 1 working. And would have to guess that you were copying and pasting code from probably Stack Overflow or some other place. And if you guys think that I don't know when you're copying code or getting code from somebody outside of the department, you're crazy. I have at least one person that turned in the project 2 with code in it I never taught. So, no, I'm not looking at anybody specifically because I'm not sure they're in this room at the moment. I didn't memorize all of everybody's names, unfortunately. So, the basic getting started stuff is the same as always. Go ahead and download your file. You are going to need a data file. It's the Atlanta temperature one. You're going to download it. Put it someplace you can find it because you're going to need to put your PI file and your downloaded CSV file in the same place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you're going to start idle. You're going to rename it to your name and the project name, right? Mostly I need your name and the file name. We're going to have a main function. Remember, your main function shouldn't have a whole lot of code in it. It should just have calls to other functions that you've written. There might be some inputs in main, might be some print lines, but for the most part, the main functionality should be in the other functions that you're going to create. Make sure there's a print statement in there with your name in it. That just makes it easier when I'm grading and I have them open, that I don't have to go look at file names again. Because I usually have several of these open at one time. Going, no comments in this code. There's no, this is not code. That sort of thing. Part 1. We are going to add functionality, which means we probably need some functions here, right? We're going to get the highest temperature, the lowest temperature, the lowest high temperature of the year, the highest low temperature of the year, the average high temperature of the year, the average low temperature for the year, the number of low temps below a threshold value where you put in where you ask the user for the threshold, and the number of high temps higher than the threshold where you ask the user for the high threshold. Now, sounds like a lot. But we did it all in assignment in lab 8, right? Every one of these things you've already done. Now, the only thing that's really kind of tricky here, it's really not, is that instead of dividing up the file into one list, like we've done before, we need 2 lists. Carefully is how you're going to do that. So you need to read through your file, CSV file, and there's going to be a column for low temps, and there's going to be a column for high temps. Each one needs to be read in and split into its own list.
So you can like store it into two different variables.
Yes, probably would store it in variables like lowest and highest, or high temps and low temps. You know, something like that. Now, I did have somebody start this already, and I was looking over the shoulder and talking with them. This means that you have code you to copy and paste, how to open and read in a file, but it only will let you return what we've written so far. Only lets you return one list, right?
Yeah.
So you can only return one value from a function. You can't return multiple values. You have to make multiple functions.
He's doing advanced stuff. I don't know.
Well, you could put both lists into a third list and return that third list, but that's a little more complex than most of you are really to wrap your minds around right now. Please don't confuse the issue.
So essentially, you have 2 functions that open up the file and create 2 separate lists.
Or you can open up the file, return the raw data list, and then pull that raw data into 2 separate functions. Either way works. If you understood it the way you just said it to me, do it that way. If you want to open it twice, read it in twice, not the most efficient code, do it, but that's fine as long as it works. I'm not grading you on efficiency, I'm grading you on whether or not you produce the code. So this is pretty straightforward in my opinion. Once you figure out that you need to run 2 separate functions or 2 separate loops at the very least to get the lowest and the highest. Right? It's not too bad once you think about it. But, you know, reading it gets a little intimidating, I know. Big wall of text up here. So once you get all of this done, you have done part 1. Right? Questions? That's it. To me, it seems very straightforward. If it's not, please let me know. All right. So completes part 1. If you didn't get all of part 1 working, I don't suggest you move on to part 2. Make sure you have all of part 1 working first. Right? Notice I did not give you any specifics on how many functions you're going to have. I didn't tell you what to name your functions. This is, we're taking the training wheels off, last project, right? You can use a function to figure out averages if you want to. You can use a function to open each list. You can use a function for any number of things. Helper functions are your friends. Isolate concerns. Each one should have Each function should do one thing and do it well. Right? If it says Moodle, ignore it. It means course 10. I just realized I missed a Moodle. Once you get part 1 done, save a backup copy for yourself by going ahead and submit. Why? That way you don't get to the last day that it's due and realize that you forgot to turn it in. I can't tell you how many emails I get from students that say, I thought I turned this in yesterday.
Ooh, good play.
Yeah. Guess what?
Oh.
Guess what? If I get it once, I usually take the late work. If I get it 4 or 5 times from the same person, I stop believing you that you forgot to turn it in a day late. Right? Yeah. All right. Part 2. We're going to add the date of occurrence and a monthly breakdown of the stats. This is a bit more challenging. Right?
Yeah.
So you're going to modify part 1 for the high and the low temp of the year and the lowest high temps and the highest low temps. Anyway, when you found those low temps, the high temps and stuff, you're going to now tell me what date it was on. So now we're bringing in a 3rd column of information. So guess what? You might have to go back and write some more code to read in more data, right? So after you do that, you can do a monthly breakdown. So you could sort by your data by month, right? And you're going to give me the highest temperature of the month and the day it occurred on, lowest temperature of the month, the day it occurred on, average high temperature of the month, the average low temperature of the month. So there is some example output here. Now this is part 1 and 2 already together, this output, so, right? So you're going to put in dates. Now, hint to you, the index numbers, if you don't mess with your data list, shouldn't change, right? So if the highest temp was at index number 5, then you can go to the date column and get index number 5 out and match it up, right? It's not the best way of doing it. It's not how it really happens in the real world of database spreadsheets if you were to have everything in its own separate list like this. But it's a good teaching tool. Questions? Concerns? Yes, sir.
So for like highest temp and low temp, would you make like an if statement? And for like high temp and low temp, to get it to pair it with the date, would you use like an if statement?
Probably, because if you use max and min, you're not going to know what index number it was. So how are you going to figure out what date it was?
So like,
So yes, you're thinking correctly.
is
So up here in part 1, you absolutely can use max and min on those lists to find them. And that's how I probably would do it to begin with. But when you get ready to start matching the dates and the temperatures, then you might have to go through and figure something else out. I'm deliberately trying not to tell you how to do it.
Oh, I know.
But I firmly believe that part 1, everybody should be able to get through part 1 and make a solid 84 on this without any problem, because we did it all. There's nothing there that we haven't already done. You know how to do import statements and get those threshold values. You know how to read in lists. You know how to print stuff from the list.
Yep.
Now, if you got hung up in lab 8 and assignment 8 and you didn't ask questions, or you didn't finish it, or you just ignored it, then you might have a little more problem, but you should be fine otherwise. So it is 8:15. This class is over at 9:15, so now would be a good time to get started on it. How many of you are planning on attending workshop on Friday?
So that's-
Okay, I'll be here Friday then. Being the Friday before a holiday, I was afraid you were all gonna bail on me and I would be here by myself, but. So if you are an in-person student, we'll have Friday workshop time, the open computers. When we get back from Thanksgiving, I have no new content for this class, so we will work on this project only next week. And I will, give you more information about your final exam. Final exam will be just like the other exams. It'll be an online test. So we won't come in here and take the final exam together. I will open it up on final exam day because that is when I'm required to give it to you guys that are in person. But I probably will leave it open for 48 hours or so because I don't know when you have other exams. Sound like a plan? All right. If there aren't any other questions, I'm going to let you guys get started.